If you've been watching this channel for some time now, you'll know me as Ethan, the mind map guy. And you might be wondering where exactly I've been because I haven't posted a video in almost 6 months. If you haven't watched this channel before, I've created over 150 different book summaries into a tool that I call the Personal Development AI. It's a web of all of the different book summaries that I've created, all stitched together in an easy-to-find summary database. And I've been away for so long simply because I've taken on a new path. And I want to really show you what I've been working on over the last 6 months or so. See, I'm a facilitator at one of the largest tech companies in the entire world. And what a facilitator is someone who essentially delivers meetings and makes meetings fun to be in for the most part. And really what I do is I work with executive teams, with product teams, with talent teams to create gatherings or meetings, as you might traditionally know them as, that help them set up their strategy, help them foster trust between their teams, and help them kind of map out what the future looks like for them. I've run dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of these types of meetings now. And what I've created, and I'm going to share with you now today, is something that I call the Gathering Operating System. And it's something that I'm making because I like to create mental models. I like to create frameworks. It's how I learn best. So I want to share my framework for creating really great gatherings that are allowing people to ask the right questions, to collaborate effectively, and to solve the problems that we now have in our environment. So I'm going to show you a whole overview of this entire gathering system that I've created, all the way from the shape of a gathering, all the way moving through what's a warm-up look like, how do we identify what we're going to work on, and then some of the tools that I use in order to actually help overcome those challenges. As well, at the very end, we'll go over what does an agenda look like and what are some of the questions I can use as a facilitator to help people get the most out of a gathering. So this is a complete gathering OS, and that's what I'm going to share with you here today. If you are a leader, if you're a facilitator yourself, if you are someone who is thinking about starting a facilitation business, I think this video is going to be the major unlock that you need in order to take your facilitation, your team to the next level. The reason I think that is because gathering, well, really what it is like an assembly of a group of participants for an expressed objective, something specific that we want to overcome. We want to set our mission. We want to create a roadmap for the next year. We need to build up trust because we've been having a lot of conflict and we can't seem to work together effectively. The truth is that modern work, it now requires us to solve complex and ever-changing challenges. An effective gathering, I believe, is our best tool to actually work together and overcome those challenges. So when I was creating the Gathering OS, I really brought in a couple of different frameworks that I've turned into something of my own. I've took in design thinking, which is essentially like this iterative process that seeks to better understand the user, to start to challenge our assumptions and redefine problems in a way for us to identify different strategies and solutions that might not be apparent with the initial level of understanding. So it's helping teams go from we're not really sure what we're trying to solve for, we're not really sure what our exact challenge is, and allow them to, at the other end, have a clear path forward. I also have brought in a lot of agile methodology. And agile methodology is a simple process for managing projects. And it just involves constant collaboration, working in iterations. And through agile gathering, I've seen teams cycle through a process of planning, executing, and evaluating. So we go from design thinking, getting something from nothing, to agile method. Let's bring that into our everyday work. I also bring a real coaching mindset. A couple of different coaching models are built into this to help teams build up that trust, foster that belonging, because we know that teams work together more effectively when they trust one another. I also, of course, have some facilitation skills. And inside of this mental model, this framework that I'm going to share with you, I'm going to share some of my best facilitation skills, how you can provide a group opportunities and resources to enable them to make progress together and succeed. Examples for this include things like setting objectives, active listening, managing their time and focus, and having a few key questions in your back pocket that allow a group to look at a situation differently. So that's what we're going to be going over today. It'll probably be a rather long video, but I will say that each one of these sections deserves its own video. So if you're interested in this, you're interested in learning more about how do I figure out how to build trust in a fast way with my team? How do I identify the challenges we want to go over in our meeting? And then how do we actually accomplish those challenges together? How do I build an agenda? And how do I, as the facilitator or the coach, help a team accomplish what they're looking for? Leave me a like on this video, hit subscribe, and leave me a comment down below. With that said, let's move into this idea of all gatherings having a shape. Quick overview of this is that all gatherings are going to go through essentially the same set of stages. Something interesting here that deserves its own video is that a lot of your gatherings, if they're not going properly, are getting stuck in one of these stages along the way, and you aren't getting to the ultimate conclusion. So gathering, what it really is this process by which teams can move from this state of challenge or problem. We're not exactly sure what we're supposed to be working on together. We don't really know why we've all come together, our example of challenges. And then what we can do is come on the other side, have a roadmap, have a strategy, have a mission. We move from the state of challenge and essentially not being sure of something and moving all the way through creative collaboration, creating a pathway forward on the other side. So this is the general shape of a gathering, and as I've said, it deserves its own video. But we have pre-work. What are we going to do before we gather? How can the participants prepare to create the best gathering possible? What pre-work do they need to do? Warming up before we meet is a way that we start to build up trust together on a team. Some small personal questions allow people to see essentially that their teammates are real people and they're not just robots that are there to help them get what they want. Open creative discussion is an important part. This is where a lot of our design thinking comes in. We go into some active listening and understanding and helping participants better understand the perspective, the point of view of other people on their team. Narrowing down of the options is something we would call converging. How do we decide what of these great ideas we've come up with is the one we should move forward with? Quick hint, the video that I'm going to do all about gatherings getting stuck in a particular area often happens inside of open creative discussion or active listening. Narrowing down the options and converging takes skill, and often people and teams miss this. Finally, we want to get clarity before we go. We want to conclude who owns what is really what we're trying to accomplish during that section. And then we're talking about what do we do after we gather, who is going to actually make sure these things happen. So with that, let's get into the very first piece. What will we do almost at the very beginning of a gathering? And that's what we're going to call warm-up questions. And what I have here is really 3 different categories of warm-up questions that you can actually use. What they are is kind of placed at the very beginning of a gathering to help break down things like social barriers and foster trust and psychological safety for teams. It allows groups to really share more openly and engage in healthy conflict and debate, which is a very important piece of divergent thinking and listening. So inside of this, I've got a bunch of different questions, really 3 different categories around fun. That's what I generally start with. It's the easiest of the categories. And inside of this, you can actually click through. You can see I've got about 17 different fun questions to keep it always new and interesting for you and your team. My connection questions, really what they are, is a way for people to dive a little bit deeper, help people start to really build up that trust and safety with one another. And then finally, I've got my explore questions. I've got about 20 different exploring questions, constantly adding to this list. And explore questions, they're the final set. They're really focused on allowing people to kind of explore their own self-awareness together in a group. They're asking you questions that are very deep and potentially not things that you've asked before. That really starts to build up trust when you have to think on your feet and explore a little bit of your own self-awareness. So you can see that the warm-up questions is really where we would get started in this entire system. Pulling down to the agenda template that I have, it's the very first thing that we're going to do together. A quick warm-up round. I have 3 different questions. I usually just shuffle them around, and I would allow the teams to go ahead and answer those questions either in small groups or together as a group. So that's the first thing that we would do together. Generally, this identifying challenges, it would be done in one of 2 different ways. Of course, we need to have objectives. We need to know what we're solving for during a gathering. We could do this together at the very beginning of a gathering, if that's the type of gathering we're running. But more often, if we're running something like a couple of day offsite, we want to have a plan before we get in the room together. So this is an exercise that I would bring a team through before we actually start planning out the meeting. We want to identify our challenges. Again, I talked about modern business and how our life has really us and our team members facing these challenges that are growing in number and complexity and urgency and difficulty. So what we want to do is identify the challenges that we're facing and then rank them by the most important and most urgent. So this is how we would do that. I would go ahead and click into the sticky note here. I would say that the challenge that I am facing right now is getting this video out after stopping for 6 months. And then I would go ahead and use this same tool, highlight all of the notes, and then we would go ahead and actually take a quick vote on which one of these are the most important after everyone's had a chance to fill them out. The most important ones go over to our setting of the objectives. So when we're setting objectives, we want to be really trying to overcome the most important and urgent challenges that a group is facing during a gathering. So an objective is just a simple statement that defines the desired outcome. What are we looking to overcome, or what are we looking to solve? The primary purpose here is just to give the participants a goal that they can really work on to achieve together in a way of measuring if the gathering was successful or not. My simple objective formula is that you need to start with a verb. We need to strengthen, we need to identify, we need to create, and then the challenge that you're confronting. We need to create a video, for example, if I'm using my own example here. And then you also want to state the value to the team. If I was to state the value to all of you, I would say that I need to create a video in order to share my framework for creating really great gatherings. That would be one of the objectives of this video that I have. Of course, teams have many different objectives, is to create a roadmap in order to have a clear picture of the work that we need to do. Create a shared mission in order to ensure that we're all working towards a common goal. Foster trust on a team in order for us to be able to work together more effectively. Those are some examples of objectives you might set. Once you've got your objectives, you can see that our next arrow is bringing us to how do we actually go about accomplishing them. And I've got a 3-part system consisting of asking questions, and questions are essentially strategic, and they expand the aspects of creative collaboration. A big part in both agile and design thinking is asking the right questions, and we're going to talk all about that in a minute. And then I've got make it visual. One of the things that I find during gatherings is that teams tend to speak quite a lot. And I think that visuals actually help humans express and collaborate and communicate in a way that we don't often understand. So having the ability to create some shared visuals gives us a map, gives us the ability to communicate in a way that is more than just speech. And then finally, we've got to take some action. And actions turn participants from kind of passive bystanders watching a presentation into active participants. We're going to go over a couple of examples of all of these things, but you can see that these 3 different icons that I have. Ask a question. So this question here that I have is, what are the user's jobs to be done? And then make it visual. You can see I've got kind of a 2x2 matrix right here, where urgent is on this side of the line, not urgent is on the other side of the line, important is at the very top, and then not important is at the very bottom. So by doing that, you've got this ability to write post and put up sticky notes about your users' most important and urgent jobs and the not important and not urgent jobs that they need to do. This allows you to get a better view of what your users actually need you to accomplish together as a team, and you can better prioritize what you might need to actually build for your users as a result of this. So putting these three parts of the Gathering OS into practice is just as simple as really, what's the question we need to ask? Make it visual in some way, shape, or form, and then take an action together as a group. Each of these three parts should be chosen to help move your group forward in accomplishing the stated objectives that we've already created. So let's talk about asking questions, and I'll give you a few examples. The first thing here is with questions, we want to be asking strategic questions. So we've got a challenge, we've got a stated objective. We want to use that to determine what types of questions do we need to ask. And questions have this amazing ability to expand all different aspects of creative collaboration. Choosing the right question is really more important than finding the answer a lot of the time, because answers have a relatively straightforward way of finding them, but asking the right questions is sometimes difficult and hard to do. So really what we're doing is we're trying to ask the right questions. And I've got a couple of different categories of questions that I'll show you here really quickly. I've got questions all about teams' missions. I've got questions all about teams' visions. I've got questions all about the value of teams. I've got strategic questions, and I've got questions about teams' principles. Each one of these has multiple different slides, just as you've seen in my other questions. And the key here is that you need to choose the right one that fits for what the team is trying to accomplish. So I've got dozens of questions in here. Each one of these categories probably deserves its own video. I'm continually adding to my list of questions, so stay tuned for more videos on the questions that I might ask. And then, of course, we've got make it visual. And really, visual expression helps humans think, just like I talked about before. It allows us to collaborate and communicate in much more full ways. And creating these shared visuals helps us bring clarity to collaborative work. Many different types of visuals that you can do here. This one, of course, I've got draw a line. There are so many different types of lines that you probably haven't thought about. We've got lines that can help us create a timeline. We've got lines that can help us say, this is essentially a certain gradient that our customers are falling on, people who are using our app all the time, people are using our app only once a day. And then we've got something that is a prioritization line. Above the line are the tasks that we absolutely must do in order to be successful. Below the line are tasks that would be nice for us to do in order for us to be successful. And then our final one here is we can draw a sequence. What are the points along the way of our customer's journey is an example of another line there. I've got flowcharts, many different types of flowcharts you can use. We've got people or drawing a scene. Who are the actors? What are the tools? What are what's the scene? What are the things in the scene that we need to be really identifying together as a team so that we can actually understand what is going on? Of course, we've seen the 2x2 matrix before, but there are many different types of 2x2 matrices that we can go over as well. And then, of course, if you've been a long time subscriber of the channel, I also have Draw a Mind Map. There are many different types of mind maps that we can use to help visualize information together as a team. Finally, with this, we've got our third piece, which is to take some actions, turning our participants from passive bystanders into active participants, involving them in purposely challenging tasks. It allows us to take advantage of their true talents and their viewpoints. This is such a key because it's quite easy to just have a discussion, and that's actually one of the first actions that I have here. It's quite easy just to have a discussion and allow people to be passive inside of that discussion. But there are many different types of discussion, as I'm sure we'll talk about in future videos. We've got different breakout rooms that we could go into, we've got popcorn style discussions, and we've even got Ask Me Anythings. You need to be very particular about the types of discussions you're having during these gatherings. Of course, we've also got the obvious ones like posting stickies, sorting stickies, we've got dot voting, we've got creating prototypes. So those are my three different categories. And what you would do is combine those to create almost an infinite number of activities that you could do as a group. And this is just a small subset of actually all of the activities that I've identified. Future videos are going to see dozens of different make visuals, dozens of different sets of questions, dozens of different actions that you can take. Well, what I want to do is get quickly into our agenda before I wrap us up here for the day. You can see again, I've got our questions as our warm-up round, and then really diving in, how are we going to use questions, visuals, and tasks together? Of course, we've got our objective here, which is align on what our users value about our product. So the question really is, what do our users value? And we want to really draw out the scene. How are our users actually kind of using the product? We want to depict the customers, we want to depict their friends, we want to depict their customers potentially, or their competitors. We want to make sure that we fully understand how a user is using our product to just kind of set the stage. We would put some sticky notes up on a wall to make sure that we've got kind of a whole idea of what the scene looks like for our users to actually be using our product. And then we want to prioritize those users' values. So what we've done here is we've got some sticky notes of our users' values. They're placed over top of the scene of where the user is at that point in time. And then we would draw a prioritization line. We would put, what are the things that are the most important to our users? They absolutely will not negotiate on these values. It's above the line. And then below the line are the things that would be nice for them to do, or would be nice for us to have for them. We would, of course, sort those together as a group. And then the final piece is we would want to vote on those. Is there anything that I would like to challenge? This is one tool that I just absolutely love using. We've got our prioritization sticky notes. We've got above the line are the things that our users must have in our product, and below the line are the things that our users would be nice to have, or it would be nice for our users to have as part of our product. And what we would do is we would give every participant maybe a red circle or a red dot that they could use. And if they want to challenge anything that is above the line or below the line, you can go ahead and put a red dot on that. And that brings us back to our activity of discussion. But we've got a specific thing that we're discussing now, instead of essentially just discussing what are the values of our users. We've made them all visual, we've prioritized them, and then we can have a real meaningful discussion about our users' priorities and values. I've also got a couple of different models here that you can use as a facilitator during these discussions. I've got the GROW coaching model, goals questions, reality questions, option questions, and way forward questions, many different questions in each of those categories, as well as the ORID discussion method, which is essentially a tool that facilitators use to help groups just interpret and reflect on their shared experiences. So we've got objective questions, reflective questions, interpretive questions, and decision-based questions. So this is my mental model. This is my framework that I've really created from many different sources, and I'll put all of them down below in the description. I'm going to continue to build the model. I'm going to continue to explain the model more in depth. If you're interested in learning more about the model, make sure you've hit the like button and subscribed. Leave me a comment down below and let me know that you're interested in this. If you're a longtime channel subscriber, I know this is a massive change from what I normally do, but I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to be extremely helpful for any of you who are leaders or plan to be leaders. It's going to be very helpful for those of you that are facilitators already at a big company, or you plan to be a facilitator. Or if you're thinking about starting your own coaching, consulting, or facilitation business, I believe these videos will be a major unlock for you. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.